WrestleBuddy Podcast. All about wrestling. Subscribe and follow for more content.
Welcome everybody to the WrestleBuddy Podcast. I am your host, Christian Garcia with @TrueCritch, and I'm here with Harold.
Hey, it's me. It's TRC.
And we're doing a little special bonus episode to our podcast. And we are here with Neil Harper, Indy Wrestler from Georgia, wrestling around Nevada, right?
Yes, sir.
And,
yes, sir.
And hey, we already jumped right into it with Hardy Boy Young Buck talk, but let's learn about your story, man. Where'd you get your start? Where'd you get your love for wrestling?
Well, I've done a couple of podcasts, man, and they say the same things, man. I love these questions. It's just like, how'd you get into it? What's your dream? All this stuff. And man, talking to people from the UK, talking to people from here just about wrestling, like it just gets my rocks going. I didn't get into wrestling until really late, man. When most people was watching it when they were kids. I remember Eddie Guerrero beating up Eugene at a SmackDown when I was like in third grade. I remember seeing that on the TV, and I remember seeing just a couple of other little things when I was a kid, because when I was from pre-K to fifth grade, it was Nickelodeon. It was, cartoons. It was movies. I didn't get into wrestling right away, but my brothers, they would have their friends over, and we had a box that would give us free pay-per-views. And my parents used that stuff. So my brother's friends would always come over to the house and watch WCW pay-per-views. They'd watch WWF pay-per-views. And I'm only like 5 years old, 6 years old. I'd sneak into the room a couple times. But what I do remember from those nights, I remember Mankind falling off the cell. I remember Goldberg a bunch. Anytime I'd open up that room, it was always Goldberg on the TV. And my brother's friends, some of them go off to the MLB draft. They were always big football players. My brothers, we come from a very athletic family, and just watching that, seeing how they got into it. And then I was in sixth grade. And I remember my first Raw was an AM Raw on Saturday morning, when you had all the cool ESPN headlines on the bottom and all that, all the cool trivia stuff. But it was the Raw, first Raw back to Spike TV. It was the Raw Homecoming. And I was eating my cereal. I was eating whatever breakfast. I'm in sixth grade. It's Saturday morning, and I'm watching Stone Cold stun all the McMahons in that segment. And it was like it was like my mom watching As the World Turns, or it was like me watching the Kids' Choice Awards. I was like, this has got me glued. I am so, what am I watching right now? So then when I would go back to school and I'm talking to my friends at the lunch tables about like, hey, did you see Stone Cold Stunner all the McMahons on TV the other night? Like, what is that? And then you start doing some studying, people start brushing you up on the knowledge. And then I had the fortunate to have YouTube, and man, from like 6th to 9th grade, 6th to 10th grade, me and my friends, we'd be outside most of the time, but if we were inside, it was YouTube and old wrestling. It was watching wrestling that's not just WWE. It was watching all these other promotions and companies, and that's what made me, wow, this is something you can actually chase. And by 9th or 10th grade, I've probably been to, let's see, my first Raw I went to was the Go Home Raw for Vengeance, or for Unforgiven 2006. I went, and I remember me and my buddy Brad were screaming, "Lita's a slut!" Edge is on top of the ladder, cutting a promo, and I think the main event was Carlito, Cena, and Trish versus rated RKO when they weren't rated RKO, and Lita. And like, man, just for that, get to see the rhombus screen, get to go to a Raw in 07, 06. That was cool. And then I go to a few other events. I went to a WWE draft. I went to a couple more Raws when I was in high school. I took my high school girlfriend to go see the Go Home Raw before WrestleMania 28, so we got to see Cena and Rock do a promo at the end. That was really cool. But what was the coolest moment as a kid was my dad took me to Royal Rumble 2010 at the Phillips Arena in Atlanta. I was in maybe like 9th or 10th grade. My dad takes me to Royal Rumble 2010. I didn't get to go to WrestleMania 27. I had a big party at my house. I wasn't able to get the WM tickets. But I was, when we were at the Royal Rumble that night, I think that's when they put on the video screen, oh, wrestling is coming to Atlanta next year, WrestleMania, and like everybody got hyped. But my dad took me to Royal Rumble 2010, and just like any other crowd, you know, everybody's Ric Flair wooing in line. Everybody's, you know, you could feel the excitement in the air when you're walking to your seat. And my favorite wrestler was Edge. When everyone loved John Cena when I was growing up, I was the Roddy Piper guy. I was the anti-hero. I was running around the school, running around the playground saying, I love Edge. I love Edge. I still got the long hair, but even I was such a mark for Edge. In 8th grade, I put black in my hair just because when he was part of the La Familia and he had black in his hair, I was like, yeah, but I was always an Edge fan, and I didn't get much into the dirt sheets till I got 18, 19, till I got out of my house and I started working, and you start actually reading the dirt sheets. But when I was a 10th grader, I did not know Edge was returning that night. I didn't know much, you know, I didn't expect him to be there that night, and he was gone for about an 8th month. You know, he was gone from that injury, and man, like MVP had a good match that night. Sheamus and Randy Orton, it was what it was. Mickey James actually had a good match that night against Laycool, but I got to watch Taker versus Rey Mysterio. That one was pretty gnarly. But then
hidden gem right there.
Yeah, it was. The last ride at the finish, I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm catching this live. But at the Royal Rumble, when it's down to like the final 5 or whatever, and Edge's music hits in Atlanta in the Phillips Arena, it's getting me shaking right now just thinking about it. It was so electric when he came out. I've heard The Rock come out on that Raw. I've heard how crazy it gets when his music hits. But when Edge came out for that Royal Rumble 2010, you knew he was winning. It was like, oh wow, this is insane. And so I was pretty cool. I felt pretty lucky to the first wrestler that you kind of favored comes back from an injury in your town, and you watched him win a legendary match like this. About, let's say, 4 or 5 months ago, I'm over here with a bunch of wrestling students and the trainer, and we're all cooking out watching Royal Rumble 2020, and they're like, Neil, who's your pick? And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I got to go with Edge. You know, Edge is going to win. Edge is going to win this thing. And they're like, oh yeah, number one, all that stuff. And old and behold, we watched the whole Royal Rumble event, and then he ends up winning it. I'm just over here like trying not to be like Will Smith. I told you so. But you know, yeah,
should put some money on that.
And isn't it cool that DraftKings is doing stuff for WWE now? But no, that was my first experience watching wrestling was the Raw Homecoming on Spike TV, and then it was a bug I couldn't get off my side. It was a bug that has been on me since. It was something I don't watch much of the Raws now because I'll catch the highlights and stuff. But I mean, when I was in high school, it was hard. And what's crazy was when my brothers was in high school, like, you know, some people generations, I'm 27, but it was cool to be a wrestler when they were going. It was cool to be a wrestling fan when they were going through school. When I was going through school through about 2000, I graduated 2012. It was really hard to be a wrestling fan. Like my girls, even friends past 9th grade, they're like, Neil, you look like a wrestler when you're doing squats, but why do you watch this stuff? Why do you like it so much? And it's something, it's kind of inexplainable, you know, like I wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. I wanted to be on sports teams when I was a kid. And when you see something like professional wrestling, it's such a blend of athleticism, pageantry, being creative, because now that I've been training since 2012, and we'll get into that, it's 40% less about the moves. It's like all theater, you know. It's not, you have to really be keen, and it's good to know what you're doing. That's why I think in professional wrestling, that's why the fans, they can spot out who got to be a wrestler just because they didn't exactly run a 40 the way they were, or they didn't get enough bench presses on the combine, so now they're here, rather than someone that's watched wrestling their whole life. They know storylines from the old WWF. They know storylines from the old ECW. They've been a student of the game. And when you watch it, and when wrestling fans noticed a wrestler that's trying to transcend, that is why they become successful. And I want to be someone like Kevin Owens. I want to be someone like Sami Zayn. I want to go around the country. I want to go around the world and master my craft. Yeah, it was cool to be at the Killer Kowalski School when I was 19, 20. But what was cool was to take your ball and to go home and to keep going around the country and doing things. We'll get into that. But like, that's what I had Tommaso Ciampa give me my first ever shoulder blocks. And he was, and I look at his story. I look at his story and be like, he was someone that was gas of the gills, jacked, so vascular. And I got pretty good in shape in high school, but I was still someone that was just eating Doritos and Red Baron pizza. You know, I was someone that I was just going off of what I can do. I'm 27 now. I'm just now learning how to eat a little bit better. But Tommaso, man, when I was 19, 18, he was just telling me things like, you have to keep up with you have to master your craft, go around the country, get used to people saying no to you, get used to people trying to ruffle your feathers up and try to do things, because that's what you're doing something right. And so when I was 18 years old, my oldest brother had a job, rock quarry job for me up near Boston. So right when I graduated high school, I was out. I didn't go to college. All my friends moved away from the summer, and I moved to Boston. And it was pretty neat for a Southern boy to go up there. I love Boston. It's a cool city, cool area up there. It was nice to get out. But I go to the New England Pro Wrestling Academy and start to train. And you have people like Matt Taven tell you that you have cadence. You have Tommaso Ciampa give you your first ever shoulder. I gave him my first ever shoulder blocks. He looked at me and said, "Come on, give them to me." And I just gave him 3 right away. I've been in the ring with Dijak. I've been in the ring with Warbeard Hansen. I've been in the ring with Retro AG Anthony Green. I've been in the ring with Christian Casanova, now known as Carmelo Haynes. I just watched him with Adam Cole on this Wednesday on NXT. You probably don't. I'm just going to start name dropping these guys just because they were so cool to me when I was up there. Cam Zagami. He got on that show American Grit with John Cena on Fox, and I was watching the show back at home just because he was a contestant. I was like, man, I'm rooting for this guy because he was literally sitting right beside me eating dinner at one point. And all those guys, man, they taught me so much. But what got me into that school was my roommate. My roommate was a big wrestler up there. He got trained by Spike Dudley, and he came out of the same class with Matt Taven. They were 1A, 1B, and his name was Jimmy Preston. He's the one-man thrill rod. He's big on MLB's Hot Stove. He got pretty viral with a YouTube video, and when he found out my name was Neil the Thrill and his name was One Man Thrill Ride, he just thought he needed me to move into his condo. So I was living in a rooming house in South Attleboro. 1 week later, I'm moving into a condominium in North Attleboro. Every weekend now, I'm starting to be his T-shirt guy. I'm starting to go sell his merch. I'm starting to learn a thing or two. I'm going down to Pennsylvania, watching Shane Douglas and Sabu wrestle. I'm going to Northeast Wrestling. I'm going to Lowell. I'm going to Woburn. It was so neat to travel the Northeast and New England. And that's what got me started training up there. He was trained, out of Spike Dudley's school in Fall River. But I was getting trained by Brian Fury. And then you go up there, and man, it was so cool to just being 27. I would love to, if you have any kids that want to go in wrestling or anybody seeing this, hey, don't carry anybody's bags. Don't carry anybody's bags. Don't feel like you got to do anything for anyone, because this is a business. Professional wrestling is a business. But, hey, I learned a lot about editing. I learned a lot about merchandise. I learned a lot about things that I wouldn't learn about if I didn't do those things and didn't do those trips. And you know, my first time ever going to an indie show. So like I told you, I didn't read much of the dirt sheets because I was a WWE guy going through high school. And then now I'm 19 years old and an end dump working 8-10 hours a day. And I grab the PWI out of the grocery store and I'm flipping through the pages and I see Matt Taven, Special Spotlight. I see Top 500 and like 10, 12 of these guys I'm training with on every Saturday, and you're chilling with them and hanging with them. And you're like, oh, whoa, man, this is a small world. And so my first ever indie show I go to was Northeast Wrestling, I think in Danbury, Connecticut. And me being a greenhorn, I'm 19 years old. I don't think that I'm wrestling. I don't even have gear yet. And I'm just being a happy camper. I'm about 6 or 7 Bud Light Platinums deep. I'm enjoying myself throughout the day. And then someone comes over to me and goes, hey, do you think you can be Dalton Castle's valet tonight? I looked over at him. I was like, yes, I can. I definitely can. And they put me into the locker room. And this is my first time ever at an independent show, 19 years old. And what is it? Dalton Castle meets with me. I end up being one of the boys. I was a peacock slave that night with another guy, and it was such a cool lesson because like even after that, they were cool with me in the locker room, and they were letting me film their podcast and film their interviews, and you know, giving me the scratch on the head at dinner and stuff. But it was such a valuable lesson to learn because I think the match before me was Mike Bennett versus someone, and Tommaso Ciampa was sitting on a chair and he was looking at the monitor too, and he was like, "You're taking this pretty seriously, aren't you?" And I was dressed up and I was like, "Yeah, I am." And he goes, "I'm glad you are, because you're just doing this, a lot of people have trained a long time just to do something like what you're doing right now." And that's coming out of the words of Tommaso. So I was just like, that's you know, not only am I nervous as a 19-year-old, I'm now just like, wow, I can't believe I got myself here. And I can remember hitting the curtain, 200, 300 people, doing the fan for him, letting him go out. I had pink trunks on and I had a little bit of glitter on, and I had a mask on my face. And when I go through the ring ropes, and like I said, this is my first time going through ring ropes at a show, first time being at a show, the bobby pin that was holding on to my glitter with my pink trunks just fall right off. So right when I go through the middle of the rope, or we had to go through the bottom because we were the boys, we were the valets, so we didn't go through the middle like Dalton. We had to go through the bottom rope, and I go through the bottom rope and my bobby pin falls off. So now it's just me and pink trunks. So I hear the gasp come out of the audience of like 250 people there in Connecticut. They go, because now they can just see my junk. They see my giblets in this pink trunk. So I'm like, I'm all of a sudden, I'm like, wow. And I've been on stage before. I loved being on stage when I was in high school. I loved being on dance clubs when I was in elementary school. So when I heard that gasp, I was like, wow. I can do one of two things. In milliseconds, you have to think like this. It's like being in a car accident. You like, all right, I got one or two things I can do right now. I can, one, show them that this is, made me afraid, and I ball up and they know that now they're going to eat me alive. Or two, I take this wardrobe malfunction and now flaunt it, just embrace it, just do the rest of the bit the way you're supposed to, and show the crowd that it's not going to bother you. And now you still have them in your hands, and you can take them which way and wherever. So I did that, and I still did where we unveiled him in the middle of the ring. And then I got out of there, and it was a cool lesson to learn at your first ever show, and learning how to just go with the flow of things, because you can learn a lot from people. That same night, I remember talking too much and being a kid, and there was a wrestler named Teddy Goods, and he was talking about a DDT being a finish, and me being, I should have even said anything, but I was like, oh, a DDT being a finish? There's plenty of DDTs out there now. You can do all kinds of DDTs. And I was just being a kid saying something, and they smartened me up right then and there when I said something like that about a DDT being a finish. So not only, I learned a lot that day, but wrestling is so subjective, man. I'm glad I'm out here on the West Coast now learning what I'm learning. But what I did learn that night also is wrestling is like getting in bed with a girl. If you go out and the crowd is quiet and you go out and the crowd is nothing going on, all right, now I'm going to have to make out. Now I'm going to have to caress. Now I'm going to have to put on a good movie. Now I'm going to have to do some hammer locks. Now I'm going to have to do some wrist locks. Now we're going to have to do some technical wrestling to get them up off their feet. If, to get them involved in the match. If we go out of the curtain and they're already abrupt, the girl's already wanting to go, then we don't have to do any hammer locks, any wrist locks. We go out there, we're going to bang, 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 back body drop, go outside of the ropes, already kind of start the match off a little upbeat. That's what they told me there that night. And that was something that I take with me and remember as advice, just because that's so smart. Like if someone did just knock the rocks off everyone and then you go on after them, don't try to be Johnny St. Clair or whoever, American Dragon Bryan Danielson, and go out there and try to put on a technical match for 10-20 minutes if they're already hot. But if they're not hot and you have to get them going, then yeah, you need to do some actual wrestling to get them going, but actual grappling. But yeah, that was a valuable lesson that I learned that night, and we keep going. I go and like I said, I met the Hardy Boys, I met Ricky Steamboat, I met Booker T, I met a cool bit of wrestlers up in the Northeast, but I didn't spend there long. My roommate was going to a WWE tryout, and he was a big personality. And when he came back and I realized, and this is a guy that he was a bodybuilder at 17, he went D1 baseball. I knew that his body fat and all of his stuff was good. But when he comes back and tells me, Neil, they love CrossFit down there. They don't like people that actually do same, old school body stuff. You got to be down there and be ready to go when it comes to tryout time. He also came back and wanted to start a family, like I saw that he was bringing in a girlfriend, and me being the 21-year-old guy, I started to feel like I was wearing my welcome out in a bit. And I was like, yeah, this is all cool and stuff. But I went back home. And when I was 21, I go back home, meet up with some buddies. We go out to work in Wyoming for a season. We were out there for about 5 or 6 months. And then I go back to Atlanta, and I lived about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Atlanta. So I had a couple of old WCW wrestlers train me in a barn, Golden Boy, Chick Donovan. There was another one, not Ray Traylor, that's the big boss man, but there was a couple of other like WCW guys that helped me learn a little bit, but I knew that I needed to get out of home. I didn't want to, being home was, no, people were trying to get me to be a salesman. People were trying to get me to do things, and I was like, what I learned up in New England the last 2 years, that and $1.50 won't get me a cup of coffee at the store. I got to get on the road and go do something with this knowledge that I learned. So that's when I had a buddy that was going to be a ski instructor in Lake Tahoe. And he said, hey, Neil, I got a spot in my car. Do you want to hop in it? I told my construction manager right away, because I was just hopping in a truck going to go install decks, carrying bags of Sacrete, stacks of wood, whatever. I was just a labor hand guy on a construction site. So when I told him I had a ride in a car, he knew what was the deal. And he was like, hey, Neil, go make something out of yourself. So I hopped in that car. I go to Lake Tahoe. I had 2 jobs on that mountain in the winter of 2017. And then I get off that mountain in 2018. I come down here to Reno, and my first 2 practices, my second practice, I got in the ring with Ken Shamrock, and he's in here showing me heel hooks, and he's in here showing me, combos. And I was like, it's one thing to be learning from wrestlers like Mike Hollow, like, Brian Fury, Chase Del Monte, all these guys here at the Northeast. And then you get in the ring with a legit dude like Ken Shamrock, like this guy here. Like when I got face to face with him, you could see how grizzled he was and how much he's been punched in the face as a 50-year-old man. And it was just like, wow, this is, I was only taking it in because this is amazing. Like he was coming here to train. Other people would pay so much money just to meet this guy. And here he is coming in here with kick pads on his shins, ready to spar with us. And I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And at the end of the training segment, I had Ken Shamrock just kind of smack me on the mouth right there. And he goes, does that hurt? And I looked at him right away and I go, no. And he goes, good. And I was like, I kind of looked over at my buddies. I was like, did I just get bitch slapped by Ken Shamrock? And but he just gave me like a little quick smack on the lips, kind of like right there. And I was just like, oh, wow, this is and I trained with him a couple more times. And Ken Shamrock, he's a really cool dude. But yeah, training in Reno here since 2018. That's what got me my first matches. I finally, settled down somewhere, and I started training, and I started locking down. And they gave me my first match on 4/20 of 2019. I was in a battle royal called the Blackjack Bedlam, and I was in the ring with Vernon White, old UFC guy, one of Ken Shamrock's buddies. I was in the ring with the Reno Scum, old TNA tag team. They trained me a lot hard too while I was down here. I got nothing but love for Adam Thornstone, Luster the Legend. Adam took me to Vegas one trip. I got to meet Shibata, got to meet Karrion Kross, got to meet Jeff Cobb, got to meet Chris Bay, got to meet Darby Allin, got to meet Eli Everfly, got to meet so many cool dudes just on the trip. So I appreciate them having me tag along. But when it goes to So after that Blackjack Bedlam match, I had a 6-man in Reno, and then I had a few other 6-mans in Reno, and then El Chupacabra, Taylor Correa, the Golden Gig champ out of Hood Slam, he asked me, hey, would you want to hop in my car and start going to Hood Slam with me on every Friday? And I knew about Hood Slam when I was in New England, like in 2012, 2013, when Hood Slam was really popping. I remember people showing me videos of it, but I didn't think that I would that my style would mesh there. But I was like, yeah, let me go. I'd love to go to Hood Slam with you. And right now, I know the pandemic caused, dude. I don't even like. Yeah. I'll get into that when it comes to it. But before the pandemic, like I was like, sure, man, I'll go to Hood Slam. And dude, they fill out that. Their crowds are sellouts every night at that opera house. I go in there, the locker rooms are nothing but cool dudes and gals, and it's the most money I've ever made in the wrestling business since then. And I was doing nothing but jobbing. They were giving me spots and doing things like that. And it was just, what a cool locker room, what a cool camaraderie. I like to see what they're doing in Vegas. I like to see what they're doing now post-pandemic, but anyways, now I'm doing Hood Slam matches. I'm getting called cool in chat rooms. I'm getting my name up there. And then my last match was a singles match against Batman Whale, Thick Martell there in Oakland on February. And then the pandemic happens. And then I get laid off from my manager job here in Reno. And it was just like everybody starts shutting down, man. So I go back home and I kick it with my family for a couple months. And then I come back out here and I start training, but it was hard. A lot of California wrestlers, a lot of Nevada wrestlers, they had to move east if they wanted to keep wrestling. A lot of people lost their promotions while all this happened. They couldn't even keep their gym up. But December, so I battled it out and I trained here in Reno of last year. And then just last December, I get a shout from Northern California that there was some training going on. So I started to train in the Bay. I've trained at Stoner U. I've trained at a few other places. And I was going to California, even though my place is in Reno, I was traveling to California every weekend. And I've been traveling to California every weekend since then. And a lot of guys like D-Row, guys like Juicy Fanoof out of GCW, a lot of big guys have I've been watching, and where I've been training, it's been really nice, but they gave me, what is it? I'm basically undefeated right now in Northern California. I'm 2-0. I've won my singles matches, and that's right before the pandemic, I got my very first singles match, and to be out of battle royals, to be out of multi-man matches, I was doing 6-mans, I was doing fatal 4-way tag matches, I was doing tag matches with other wrestling trainees from Reno and other places around the West Coast and such, and that was cool. But I wanted to be Neil the Thrill. I wanted to be a character. I wanted to be, and it was nice to learn, see where your character was evolving just by, because Chupacabra gave me a good piece of advice. He goes, "Hey man, nobody's even going to talk to you till you've had at least 100 matches." And to be in my first 20 matches and people be like, "How long have you been in this? What are you doing?" And I remember my last singles match. The people called me out from Austin, Texas. They're like, "From Austin, Texas, Neil Harper." And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I've never even stepped foot in Austin, Texas. Like, I've never even driven through Austin, Texas. So to hear the crowd be like, "Oh, go back to Austin," or like the crowd was just, like, "Oh," I even looked at the chat room later and they were like, "Oh, Austin boy, that's my stomping grounds." And I'm just over here like, wow, man, that's not, it's cool to see what people can do for you with you just trying to be I'm just trying to learn how to work, man. I'm just trying to learn how to get from point A to point B. I don't want to, it's cool to be a good guy. It's cool to be a bad guy, but I just want to learn how to work. And like, man, that was so cool, man. And to be in the ring, man, to hear people be like, "Oh yeah," or like, "Welcome to the big leagues," or people, when it starts to get real, that's what a lot of people, I think a lot of my non-wrestling friends, they think it's like always an amusement ride. No, when you get in those locker rooms in Northeast Wrestling, when you get in the locker rooms of Hood Slam, when you start to get into the world of professional wrestling, it starts to blend, like what is real and what's not. Because like when you're in the wrestling ring, everybody's talking in character. Everybody's like, in with themselves, and like it's time to, when your music hits and you're in that ring, it feels so cool to have your back against the turnbuckles. And then when that bell rings, and it's oh man, I'll never forget the feeling that I had on that Battle Royal debut at the Blackjack Bedlam, and I'm like entrant number 25, entrant number 26, and the countdowns counting down, and when it got like to 5 or 4, the bristle, the hair off your arms start to just kind of like turn down, and it's just like, all right, time to sign up. You've always wanted to do this. It's time to go do it. Time to go punch the clock, and you hit that curtain, and it's an adrenaline you can't ever find outside of wrestling. I can't jog or I can't run with that type of adrenaline in my. It's something about hearing that crowd, and yeah, man. I just there's a lot to go with being a character, and I don't want anyone to, like, they think wrestling, they can think all they want. You can't determine what other people think. You got to chase the dream you want. And I'm 27, and I've met a lot of cool people, and I've done a lot of cool things. I've traveled across the country 4 or 5 times, and Chupacabra once again told me another good piece of advice before you walk out of the curtain. He goes, "Don't fold." He goes, "Never fold." He goes, "Don't fold." And that's something I try to remember as well when you go through, like, because wrestlers and all types of promotions and all types of places, they'll try to see how much they can get out of you. It's a very cutthroat business, just like a lot of industries. And you'll go to promoters and they'll see how much you know, and they'll try to get you to help their boys out. They'll try to get you to help their crop out. And storytelling and appreciation, it's a two-way street. You got to know, sometimes you got to be your own agent. And that's why, I'm glad it wasn't like I was not in the best place to speak last week, but it's just, I talked to a ring announcer this week from Hawaii. And I've also talked to an old wrestler friend of mine named Vlad that works up at WWE headquarters. He was a wrestler in Connecticut, but I've talked to them over this past week. And one Vlad told me, he goes, "Neil, be a man of your word, and tell them tell them you don't feel comfortable and get yourself out of it. But I had to pull myself off the last 2 matches I was on shows, and I've never had to do that as a professional. But when I'm starting to roll around and get myself on cards and I'm getting myself on shows, usually I meet the promoter. Usually I meet the people before they start to put my name and picture on flyers and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, you know, I got these people just boosting me up for no reason at all other than my name, which I'm really happy about. But when I start to see, like, I've been a baby face for the last 5-6 matches, but then they see my couple wins here in NorCal, and they're like, hey, we want you to be a bad guy, and we want you to have the microphone, and we want you to main event, and we want you to go 15 minutes, and we want you to go up against a guy that, you know, isn't really nobody wants to be, you know, like, I'm trying to enjoy professional wrestling while I can. I'm trying to, you know, this is not my first rodeo. I've been around so many schools. I've been around so many places. You see that people only have so much time to wrestle. So I'm not going to, you gotta take care of your embassy as much as you can. You got to take care. You're your own agent. You're your own management when it comes to independent wrestling and professional wrestling in general. You know, until, you know, I'm sure once you get a contract deal with Ring of Honor or New Japan or WWE, they'll have some people, and of course you'll surround yourself around good people. But in this game, people will see your credibility and they'll try to see if they can take a lot of it, you know, wave catchers, people that, you know, no, I'm always the one that initiates the move. And if I don't feel comfortable, there's a lot of cool guys that, you know, I've rubbed elbows with here in the Bay Area, but that ring announcer that I talked to from Hawaii, he told me, he goes, Neil, I can't believe you've been in NorCal as long as you have. NorCal is such a toxic pro wrestling. And he goes, I heard that from Super Beast. And I do follow Super Beast on Twitter and Facebook. I see where he talks about the toxic level of Northern Cal. And I've met Super Beast a couple times at the Hood Slam locker room, but like, I didn't know he was from Sacramento. I didn't, you know, I'm just being a traveling guy. I'm just being a journeyman. I'm just getting myself, and I enjoy seeing new parts of the country, but other than that, though, there's still a lot of good wrestling in the Bay. I can't wait to see what they do in the summertime when it comes with Rogue, where it comes with my buddy Sanders that's been training at SBW. He's going to Bad Luck Ballet School in New Zealand for a few months. They got another kid that's going to Nightmare Factory for the class 3 later this summer and stuff like that. A lot of my wrestling friends that I've made with over the last 2 years, some of them went to the Nightmare Factory. Some of them moved to Georgia, moved to the East Coast just to keep wrestling. And they still have a job and they're still wrestling, making getting bookings, and I'm happy for them. I'm proud of them. But I look at myself going back south and going back east in the next few months, actually. So I'll probably be joining them when it comes to New South Pro Wrestling, going to go train in Atlanta, go say hello to AAR Fox, because it's been I've never trained where I'm from. I'm from Georgia, but like I said, I always was up and moving in New England. I moved out west, and I've wrestled in Fresno, Oakland, Yuba City, Reno. It's cool if the pandemic never happened, because I'm glad that I was just in my first 20 matches. I could only imagine the frustration and the fury that it brought to people that was 30 years old, 31 years old, 34 years old, and they're years into this. And they're trying to get their name out there, and they're getting bookings in LA. They're getting bookings in Portland. They're going to Seattle. And then next week they're in Vegas. And then all of a sudden everything stops. And it wasn't like Florida and Georgia and the East Coast. You know, it wasn't like where in just 3 months people was having wrestling shows again. Out here, it was like, it took a toll. And
no, I can relate. I'm from San Francisco. So
yeah.
There hasn't been nothing of wrestling since the pandemic.
Dude, and I'm stoked for the Cruel Summer show. I'm stoked. Like what is it? You know, you saw me in East Bay, but yeah, man, I had to pull myself off that WWZ show. They got some other cool cats working at I was supposed to be at the PCW show this Saturday, but no, man, some people, dude, like you know how much they know, and man, I don't like to be. I'm not a sponge. I don't like for people to soak all what is out of me, and I get little to nothing. You know, like I help people. I propel people, and the last few months, man, like Rig Luxury, he's cool, but you know, it's just I'm, you know, like, man, I like to never say never. And with the wrestlers that I made friends with around here, they've already been like, they're begging me not to move. They're begging me not to leave. The ring announcer was already like, oh, Neil, dude, we need your energy here and all this stuff. But the people that you've rubbed elbows with, and that's why this is, you know, I've always traveled, and what I'm trying to do is get my name out there, because then I'd like to go back home to my family. But you go around, and the people that like D-Rogue, like Juicy, like Sanders, like Surza, like all these other guys that are like trying to be like, hey, I'm when I'm the top guy at East Bay, or when I'm the top guy around here, when they ask me who do you want to work, I want to say you, and then you can come back over here and wrestle me. That I'm all fine with. That I'll come in, I'll be a happy camper, I'll put my bag down, you know, it'll be like an in and out, I'm here, I'm gone. That'll be cool. But when it comes to consistently training, you know, NorCal's got been known for a lot of things, you know, it's got a lot of fine things. But you know, when it comes to training to be a pro wrestler, there's only so much you can do in the Bay Area. There's only so much you can do in Northern California. My mom was like, Neil, why don't you go to Vegas, or why don't you go to LA? And I just visited LA a couple months ago. I've been to Vegas a few times. It's not like I don't want to. I know the cred they got there. FSW, Santino Bros. I know what you can do down there, but it's just like I said, I've accommodated myself with those people. If I can still get my name up and get my stock up and get people know who Neil the Thrill is, I can go to FSW on a loop when I'm going to go wrestle for people up in NorCal, or when I go to wrestle people back in Reno, or back in, you know, wherever. I want to make sure that I'm not ever being an afterthought. I'm not ever being stale. And that's what, you know, it takes a long time to get a body. That's why I don't want to go off my last match. I want to create a body of work. I want to make a good body of work. You see a lot of guys getting recruited to AEW, get recruited to WWE just because of their match, just because of what they can do, just because of who they, you know, like, I want to create a body of work, kind of like what John Moxley did, or like what Kevin Steen did, or like all these guys that were like, now you know what you're getting with this talent. I'm not the biggest guy, I'm not the fastest guy, I'm not the strongest guy, but I've beaten a lot of those guys, and I want to put my card in the deck. If you put Neil the Thrill's card in the deck and you shuffle it, you would be surprised at the result that comes out most of the time. And that's a chip on my shoulder. You know, I like to be that intense character.
Wow, that's a good way to.
Sorry if a lot of this is just going right over y'all's head.
No, that's good.
No.
I love what you're saying.
I remember when Savage was our world champion up here in the Indies before he even made it to the WWE. So I know a lot about the Indies.
And whereabouts are you from? Are you up in?
I'm in New Brunswick, Canada, brother.
Oh, okay. Well, hey,
I'm Emile Dupre was our guy up here.
Well, I don't know too much. I mean, I've heard about the Canadian wrestling and the old, you know, Stampede. And that's West Canada. Are you in East Canada?
I'm on the East Coast. I'm on the East Coast, brother.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, I don't know too much about the old Canadian, but when I was up in Mass, I'd hear about George the Animal Steel almost every day.
Dude. I seen Haystacks Calhoun before he passed. Nature Boy Dylan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, those names are ringing a bell to me. But yeah, when I was up in Massachusetts, they said George the Animal Steel was like such a smart guy. They were like, he's a substitute teacher throughout the day. He'll be over here by night, but then on the weekends, he's at the Garden. Like they talked about George the Animal Steel as like someone that could like, he was a man's man before. And that was something, you know, I didn't really, because I'm a movie buff. I'm a wrestling buff. I love going back and watching old WrestleManias, but no, I don't know much about like their lives. And that's what's very interesting to like, you know, it's addicting, man. Like, just like how they say traveling's addicting. I don't like, you know, going around and being in a Denny's or being in a place after a wrestling show on the East Coast, and you hear these old timers talk about Sabu, ECW, rolling around with RVD, and when I'm hearing stories like that, it just makes me feel good inside. You know, it's like I'm doing something right. I'm doing something that's like, you know, if anything, you know, I know this isn't very 401k-ish, but this is something that I'm able to like. If I wasn't doing this in my 20s, I'd probably regret it a lot in my 30s. I'd probably regret it a lot in my 40s. I go back home and people that graduated college go, Neil, I wish I traveled like you did. Like, Neil, I wish I could go on like doing what you're doing. And then I got an old science teacher that I'm always good with remembering good quotes and stuff like that. But she goes, Neil, take it slow. And that goes hand in hand in pro wrestling. But she goes, Neil, take everything slow. And that's what, you know, that's another good piece of advice.
That's right on.
Because
Yeah.
in the wrestling ring, you slow is smooth, smooth is fast. You guys can relate, huh? Bret Hart,
Yeah.
Mr. Perfect, 92 or 91,
Exactly.
I think.
I bumped into him in a bar.
Who's that? Kurt Hennig?
Yeah.
Oh wow! Because he was
wasn't
always
watching
around.
where I was going. I walked back into him. I look up at him. I'm going, oh shit.
That's Mr. Perfect, man. That would have been an awesome guy to meet. That's why I see wrestling now opening back up in Alaska. I'm sure, Christian, you see the Wrestle Pro Alaska stuff since I've been out here. You see wrestling going back in Calgary, and it's got me like. I love positivity in wrestling. It's unfortunate to hear about 1, 2, 3. It's unfortunate to hear about Bar, but like I'm out here on the West Coast. I want to go see Washington State. I want to go see the Oregon Trail. I want to go see Calgary. I want to go see Vancouver. That's what's cool. Like I just want to go. And the wrestling is a beacon for so many things. When I went on one of those Vegas trips where Adam Thornstowe took me. After a Q Pro show, I got a buddy of mine taking shots with Josh Barnett on the lower floor, and the Rascals have some buffalo wings, and they're at the elevator, and they kind of and I go to the elevator with them. Now I'm going up to the room with Trey Miguel and Desmond Xavier, and we're just chilling in the room for about 30 minutes to an hour, just shooting the crap. And Desmond Xavier looks over at me. And first we were talking about music. First we were talking about some current event stuff, but then it got to wrestling real fast. And I'm over here trying not to be a fanboy, just because I was actually on a trip. I'm listening to them hard, and I respect them, because almost every day on YouTube, I'm usually catching a video with them in it. And Desmond Xavier looks over and says, "Hey, stick with wrestling. Stick with wrestling because you never know where it'll take you." And this was about 2.5 years ago. This was when him, Trey, and Zach was still a trio in TNA and Impact. And now to see where they've gone and like what's happened in the last 2 years, I didn't think Tommaso Ciampa would ever be what he is in the WWE. When he was just a Ring of Honor guy, when I was giving him shoulder blocks, and then I go back home, and then I go to Wyoming and do a seasonal job with some buddies, and then you go back home, and I got my old man in a recliner right next to me. I get home from work, and we're watching Tommaso Ciampa versus Johnny Gargano on NXT, and like that's what it'll almost make you knock your head on the wall, because nobody around, not a lot of people follow wrestling in certain towns. And I'll just be like, hey, not only do I know that guy, I know that guy. And they'll just be like, well, what are you going to do? Well, that's cool. What are you going to, what's cool about that? what's cool about that is this guy here was in his late 30s, and he's over here training people in their young 20s how to do shoulder blocks. And then he's over here telling me, hey, when you go home, tell your roommate I said hello. This guy was just a nice guy. This guy was just a generous guy. This guy had a lot of passion. And then what do you know? This dude's over here. It's you have I don't care if it's win, lose, or draw. I don't care if I make a lot of money or not. You want to go out there and be just as driven as he was.
Yeah, that's some great advice right there. Well, we don't want to take too much of your time. Like, you already given us enough. I can really relate with your story, like the whole, like, you watched Nickelodeon first and then wrestling. I can relate to that. Like, I didn't even know what channel Raw was on.
Yeah, same here. That's why I call AM Raw. And,
yeah, that just brought up like a memory. I totally forgot about Raw AM, because that's how, like, I wasn't allowed to stay up past 10. So I couldn't watch the last hour of Raw, but Raw AM like filled me in of what happened, what I missed, and I didn't have the internet to like read the results.
Guys, first off, thank you for having me on, and hopefully I'll be able to shoot the shit with you guys more about this stuff, because I love wrestling. And just how you said, man, it almost, my parents were always cool with me. They let me, I was watching horror movies before Disney and then Nickelodeon. I guess I kind of, I didn't have the parental discretion. But then when I start to grow up and you're in high school and you see people that are like, their parents are accountants or like whatever, and they come over to you and they say, you like wrestling? Like, wrestling insults your intelligence, or like, I couldn't watch wrestling because my parents didn't watch. And then I do a little more digging, and I'm like, wait, you couldn't watch Rugrats either? Wait, you couldn't watch Family Guy either? Like,
watch SpongeBob, yep.
Yeah, and I'm like, then you get into. I could only imagine being that oblivious, and then going to college and learning everything at a ferocious rate and stuff like that. So, yeah, I see the pros and cons of, and how wrestling was wrestling was different than it was now, but politics is different than it was back then. Sports is different than it was back then. The world evolves, and pro wrestling, if you kept up with it, you have a pulse on kind of how the world works, how the world was working, how people saw things. And like, man, that's why in many different time zones and many different cultures, things are different, but more or less it's always the same. And I tell everybody that I come across this, professional wrestling is so cool to me, because that guy that drove me to Hood Slam every Friday, he told me, Neil, I know people that wrestle in Japan, Israel, Canada, Mexico, Africa, UK, you name it. And they all make a living wrestling, and they're not on TV. So it can be done. And he also, professional wrestling is something that you see how divided this world is, but everyone can get behind predetermined matches. Everybody can get behind a show when it's time to. So that's what's cool about wrestling, is no matter where you're at in the world, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, pro wrestling always seems to make people come together and make us all on the same page. And that's what is a beauty of
same with rock
wrestling.
music, brother. Music's the universal language. Same with that. Same with any athletic sport. Sports and music are the universal thing.
You'll learn a lot more being on a team than you would. Like, I've never used the Pythagorean theorem more times than I've had to use things with actually learning being on a team. And music, when you said music, Tom Petty said music is the closest thing to magic we have on this world. So, I like to remember things like that. But no, guys, that's the wrestling can, is so subjective, and it takes people. You sacrifice family time. Ricky Steamboat was the most craziest experience I had with someone, because I didn't have any words for Ricky Steamboat. I'm speechless. a lot of wrestlers like Paul London and stuff like that, I'll be like, hey, what's up? Or like I looked over at my trainer, Brian Fury. I'll be like, hey, do you get starstruck? And he's like, oh, there comes a time where you eventually don't get starstruck. But when I was 19 or 20, I couldn't even speak when Ricky Steamboat got in front of me. And he goes, oh, I like your shirt. And then I just also didn't have anything else to say. And he looks over at his person that had him at the show, and he goes, all right, are we good to get out of here? And I'm like, oh man, does Ricky Steamboat, like, is he a little, like, not bitter, but is there something up with this guy? That's why you got to watch out with what heroes you see. But what happens at that wrestling show was he cut a promo about having 4 divorces, about having so much time away from wrestling and stuff like that. And then I was starting to think to myself, well, maybe he was just in, like what we say in our generation, in your feelings. I was like, well, maybe this dude was just like, kind of caught up throughout the whole day. Maybe that's why I caught that vibe off of him for only the 2 minutes that I was around him, because later he gets into this ring and he starts talking about 4 wives that he misses and all the stuff that he did because of professional wrestling. So, and I was thinking to myself, man, this guy's just, he was a babyface his whole career. So he's probably just mad that he was one dimensional and I'm just trying to be a smart aleck to myself. But no, I listened to him and I was like, wow, man, really, you do a lot of sacrificing for this stuff, man. You guys doing this podcast for me, you guys filming for others, for the fans out there, for things like it takes maybe not a lot, but it still takes something to do what you love. And I'll never let anybody tell you your worth. Never, man, it makes me feel like a compliment that I pulled myself off those shows. And I got wrestlers messaging me, hey man, are you going to be in NorCal this weekend? Hey man, where are you? Or like you hear from your mutual friends, from your peers, hey, where's Neil the Thrill at? Hey, where's Neil at? Hey, where's this at? That's what's cool to me, because that's, you're doing something right when you got, that there's plenty of people that are going to help out with wrestling, but you have to look after yourself first. If you're not taking care of yourself, man, mentally, physically, spiritually, people will use and abuse you. They'll think that they can talk, and maybe I'm from the South, so they think that they can get one over on me faster than the other guys. But I've been around, like when I went up to the Northeast, I told you this isn't my first rodeo, and it's like, man, I come from a town where we're 80% predominant African American. Like by 5th or 4th grade, I got more. When I was in high school, I had more friends coming over that I wasn't supposed to than I was. And then you go up north and it's like, man, they think that I'm supposed to have redneck tatted on the back of my neck. They think I'm supposed to have like my letters tatted on the back of my neck and some weird trouble. I met more racist people in New England than I did in my entire 18 years of living in rural Georgia. And that's just because, man, people don't understand the culture and like the living of things. And like, man, it's just, you don't, it's not like what you see. If anything like that, it's not, so they, when I was up in Boston, it was kind of like the same. It wasn't like San Francisco. It wasn't like Northern California. But I got nothing but good things to say about San Francisco. When I was training down there in Oakland, I had people in North San Francisco let me crash on their couch for a week. They're letting me walk around San Francisco, letting me see the town. I got nothing but love for the Bay. If I ever do train around here again, probably the first place I'm going to is Oakland. But when it just comes to the entire Northern California in general, they feel like they not are smarter than you, but because they hear your dialect, because they hear your accent, because they see how
they automatically think, oh, redneck.
They think maybe that they can test you, and maybe they think that they can get one over on you. And I'm just like, no, I don't have a problem losing. I don't have a problem putting someone over, but I'm on my own health insurance right now. I'm on my own dollar right now. I'm what I got right there is a heat press machine that I'm trying to make T-shirts and coasters off of to try to get my merch up. Like you got to watch. People will see what you're doing and they're like, oh, I want to work that guy. Oh, I want to work that guy. Oh, I want to work that guy. When people are jumping up to the gills to want to work you, that's a red flag. When you're best friends with your wrestling trainer, that's a red flag. When you create a promotion and you don't bring any outside talent to help boost you up or to help bring your promotion up that you started, and you're kind of like the best guy in your promotion, you're the Hulk Hogan in your promotion, and you're not making anyone else better around you, that's probably a red flag. And I noticed that they were just like, oh, Neil, I want you to be in my match twice. And I was just like, no, I'm over here a few months training. I'm keeping my mouth shut. I'm just doing the rolls. I'm doing the drills. I'm trying to just learn how to eat. If they see something in me, that's great. But I'm not going to be utilized in a way where I might not be able to work the next day or or be able to do my stuff next week just because I gave them the show of a lifetime, when that other people are. That's you. You look at the top wrestlers in the area. I watched D-Rogue. I watched Juicy. I watched Anton. I watched a lot of dudes around the Bay Area and how they act and manner and all that stuff. And hey, their family's here. That's why they stay here. But if my family was here, I'd probably be at Best of the West, or I'd probably be at a show in Pacheco tonight. But no, man, I'm glad to say, hey, Mike Rain gave me 3 bookings at Best of the West. Hey, Mike Rain's really cool in the Hood Slam locker room. Hey, Sheik gave me opportunity after opportunity when I was just a friend of Chupacabra. I'm looking in the crowd in Oakland, and I see people like Fabricio, Dino Gaines, Big Juicy. They're in the crowd watching me wrestle. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, those guys, I should be watching them wrestle. But it's not what you know, it's who you know. But that's a very
you try to take away.
Dude, I don't like saying that, but that's an honest to God truth. I wish it was not about who you know and what you know, because it's about what you earn. You're supposed to earn what you're given, But man, it's real, and just like in a lot of industries, it's who you know. And dude, that's why I'm 27 and I'm learning just like you guys. So. Thank you for wanting me on here, and I'm going to make sure that I keep my stuff up. I got a lot of content on my Facebook. I don't have an Instagram. I just didn't want, I know it. I've told a lot of people this, man. I've been to so many places. I could have tagged myself in 5,000 places all around the country. I could have tagged myself with 5,000 girls. I could have tagged myself at 5,000 events. But I was never that kind of guy. I was a class of 2012. I got on the Snapchat very late. So I wasn't, you see.
I don't even have that. So there you go.
Hey, man. Hey, Wrestle Buddy, stick with Twitter, stick with Facebook, stick with Spotify, stick with whatever, because Instagram can get you a lot of clout. Yeah, it can get you a lot of business. But this is my take on Instagram. When I was 18, 19, the only people that was on it were like girls that needed attention and guys that were trying to be creeps, guys that were trying to get in DMs and like it wasn't really, unless you're like photogenic, you can be a very photogenic person and want Instagram. But I was just like, I don't know if it, being a wrestler, I was very prideful and, defiant, I guess is one way of saying it. But I was up in Boston and New England and I was like, nah, man, nobody wants, I guess it's a way of like not wanting someone to track your trail, like I didn't want to be a Chicago pimp and be showing people what I'm doing every night and stuff like that. But now that I'm 27, I do regret a little bit of it because, like, man, those are memories. The reason I have a Facebook is because it's like a directory from all the people that I meet across the country. And and seeing memories and seeing people that, like, oh man, one of the last people that I trained with up in New England was Travis Gordon. He came in wrestling school real late when I was on my way out, and I was like 2 months there in. And this dude comes in and does 450s on the very first day. He has the trainer looking at Cam Zagami and going, he's already better than you. And he's like, we're like, wow, dude, look at this guy. And he was a mascot out of college. He was, right out of the Army and stuff like that. And he ends up becoming friends with people that I was friends with up in Boston. But then I see him like doing karaoke with Sasha Banks, like in the doing stuff like that. And that right there is what makes me like, you have to have good motivation. And if you do get bad motivation, like with what I've encountered around here, like just little kids, you're always gonna, it's not haters, but if you're not rubbing people the wrong way, if you don't stick your neck out there, then you're never really ever gonna get ahead. And like that's what makes I love having motivation like that every time I go to the gym. When I'm on the treadmill, yeah, it's cool to listen to podcasts, but when I'm doing dumbbell reps or when I'm doing something like where you have to think of someone that called you a prick or called you names or someone that you're not jealous of, but it's a professional jealousy. You know, I left New England being like, hey man, that Flip Gordon, that dude's going to go on to do big things. He's going to win a lot of titles and he's going to be friends with a lot of people that I wished I was friends with. And then I'm 6-7 months back to being home. And I turn on my YouTube and I click on my BTE. And I've said this in a promo to guys before. I've clicked on my BTE and who do I see on Being the Elite? That guy. So yeah, it is a small world. It's great. You know, like it's, you know, but I don't I'll never discredit hard work. You know, like I hope the best for everyone that goes into wrestling school and wants to come out to be something that they dreamed of. But man, it is it's a business. And I've talked to people in the UK. I've talked to people in Scotland. Now I've talked to you, man. You're up there in Canuckland, and like, dude, I want them to realize if you don't travel, you only get a page. You only see a page. You got to, and I guess now with internet and stuff, you know, yeah, we got multiple sources to where that's what, you know, I don't, people, it was easy to fool a wrestling fan in the 90s. There's a literal survey that says 1 out of 3 people that walked in a WCW show thought it was real. When I was growing up in the boondocks of Georgia, I'd have redhead rednecks come up to my doorstep and be like, oh man, did you see Big Show really throw John Cena through that spotlight? It must have really hurt him. And I'm over here like, look, you are no longer able to use my pool anymore just because of the intelligence, you know, like it would just get me riled up that like people still thought it was like real. And, but they,
there has to be a certain amount of choreography or else it's not going to work. People are going to get hurt.
Right. But I'm just, you know, with them not taking the show aspect of it. And then you grow older and you get out there and you see like, man, just people, just, you know, they don't really I'm trying to see how to word this. It's just like they can't figure out how to you know, really respect something.
Separate reality from theater.
Yeah, exactly. And when people are out here, you know, like, man, really believe in their BS and like really, you know, like, man, it's cool to cut promos. It's cool to be a wrestler. It's cool to go into the show. But if you're not doing it for the right reasons, if you're not doing it to be a good role model, if you're actually being a bully, if you're actually doing something, you know, like that's not going to go far in anyone's, you know, if you shoehorn your way into places, you're not going to earn, then you're not going to be in the places where you have to earn the right to be there, you know? So no, I'm glad that I've had a lot of wrestling friends around this country. Like I said,
I would love to see you up here in our indie promotion in IHW, man. That would be just cool to me to actually get to talk to you face to face and say, hey, remember me?
I'm gonna be like, oh, is that Harold over there? Yes, dude. That's what I told the guy in Scotland and UK. Every one of these people that I talk to, I want to go out there and perform because you're only as good as your last match. You're only as good as your last show. Let's be real. So that's why you got to get out there. You got to keep being a performer. You got to you want to enlighten people. And
music was my thing back in the day.
Music was a big thing for a lot of people there back in the 70s and 80s. But that's back to professional wrestling, man. It's people will get their egos really high and they need to check it right at the door.
Wrestling, not as a wrestler, but as a manager.
Oh, you're as a See, I've never had a manager, but man, I've seen people that, you know, have very little ring time go out into backyard shows, and they got like managers of 2, managers of 3, ballets, all this stuff. It's real easy when you got a squad behind you. What's not easy is when you're a person on your own trying to legit make it. When you have nobody looking after your back, it makes you it makes you feel like you can't trust a lot of people. It makes you feel like you can't. You're very Tom Hardy like. Your eyes on the prize, and that's why I like to stay as a sing. Even though it was cool tagging with the same guy for about 3 to 4 times in 2019, we were 2 different peas in a pod. We were like 2 of the best students in Reno, so they matched us up and they took us around California, and we were tagging. And he was somebody, you know, I don't read a lot of Naruto. He throughout the trips, he was just in his glasses on his book, like in the back, and like we would still be able to get along to this day. You know, like we're still cool. He's taken me home a few times from wrestling school and stuff like that. But we're 2 different peas in a pod. You know, like he'd rather be his thing, and I'd rather be my thing. He's already changed up his gimmick since we've tagged, and I'm just, you know, like no, I can play a Southern heel, but I don't want to. I've been a baby face. I've been a baby face since I've wrestled, and it's like they see something. And what's cool about that is they see something that's different. Just because you're a Southern guy, or just because you're a Western guy, or just because you're whatever they pin you as. I've walked into places where they look at me and they go, all right, you're Seth the Lizard, and you have to wrestle JoJo the Fish here, and you got 7 minutes, and he's going over. And that's all really the intel you get. So I don't like being pinned too many times, because what you want to be creative, you want to be dynamic. And when I'm dynamic, when I'm creative, the crowd likes me. The crowd roots for me because I'm something different. And that's what you know, you have to take that into effect. If you go around here and they you know, oh no, you're going to put my guy over because you're really light and you can bump really well, and you know, you're just going to do the, you know, nah. It would be, if I was 19, I'd probably be out there barefoot doing some swantons. But I'm 27 now, and you got to take yourself a little serious. And wrestlers, man, wrestling promotions, it's I don't want to say it's just like the entertainment industry. You know, you have to watch. You have to watch over yourself, man. And this is that's what caught me just a minute ago. Is like, man, back in the 90s, nobody had dirt sheets, nobody had sources, insiders, people that weren't. There were a certain amount of people that weren't getting above a 5th grade level education, because they just weren't. They weren't going to get no more education than that. Nowadays, since like the 2K generation, we educate ourselves. There are kids in Jamaica. There are kids in the ghettos of everywhere. There are kids in literally everywhere that have smartphones now, that have some type of a tablet, and they're getting education that they weren't getting 20 years ago. They're getting now more news and stuff. So they're evolving. This world is evolving, and just because you know the wrestling business, just because a lot of these guys like in their 30s take their first bump and they start watching Total Bellas and they start listening to podcasts. I've been around so many dudes that just like they've only trained in one place, but they'll come over to me and they'll be like, oh yeah, this guy's a real pencil, or like, yeah, this guy, like, they'll just start using wrestling terms just to do it. And I'm like, see, that's not cool. You know, like, don't just come over to me and start like,
don't let them treat you like a pencil neck geek, as Freddie Blassie would say, you know.
Well, yeah. Freddie Blassie would say a pencil neck geek, but like I think pencil's like a term for like a booker in wrestling. But like there's all kind of like slang terms and stuff like that, and they'll come over to me, and I'm just like, dude, don't, you know, like that's.
Speaking of terms, have you ever considered yourself like a mark for the business?
Big time. If you're not I was a smart, definitely, but on my Charter On Demand days, because that was when I was catching up on Nitro, catching up on WWE. Like, that was when I was what Brian Pillman would call people a smart. But by the time I got out of high school and by the time I was doing those things with those guys, that's what made me realize, like, there are some people that never leave their mom's house. They never leave their area code. And they're over here telling people like me, hey, this guy's real stiff, or hey, this guy's real, like, all this stuff and everything like that. I'm like, dude, what? Like, no, people, the reason why D-Rogue wanted me a couple of times at Hood Slam, the reason why I still see D-Rogue at these wrestling shows and he daps me up and he goes, Neil the Thrill, my man, and stuff like that, and it might rub people the wrong way, is because
to everybody else, man, it's you that's going to matter.
They see your work, and the reason that they don't, you don't really necessarily have the best footwork. You don't necessarily have the best psychology. You don't necessarily, you're somebody that's probably going to potato someone. And don't get me, I love to work snug. I work snug. So like, if it's somebody I love to work with, if it's somebody that I wanted to work with and they bust my nose, I'm not going to get mad. I know that's part of the show. But you got some people out here that they call themselves a tough guy till the chickens go home. But then when they get a forearm in the eye, or when they get an uppercut underneath the chin, then all of a sudden they just lose the rest of the match. They forget all the spots, and now they're just what we like to call hot. And that's just, there's professionalism, and then there's, you're never going to leave where you're from. And I don't want to be a bitter dude, but when you've trained around someplace for 5 months, 6 months, and oh man, I was told about giving some people up here upsets. I was told about winning titles here in the late fall. I was told, and all that stuff's cool, but no, man, like I take it day by day. I'm not gonna, because that's how they get you. They'll oh, you do this and you do that and you do this, and then by the time that the day comes, oh, they're not. I made sure I got my wins when they told me my wins were coming. And then, like, for instance, another Reno buddy of mine, he was supposed to, actually, he's taking my tag spot tonight in a show, but which makes no sense because he's a heel and the rest are babies, but it's all good. He's not had as many matches as me. He's not as trained as many places as me, but he's been doing his thing in the gym. He's been trying hard, but when he gets to the show, they're like, oh no, you're actually losing. Oh no, you're actually doing this. See, I'll never have let anyone do anything like that to me. When I was going to Hood Slam, I knew I was jobbing. When I was going to these other places, I knew I was going there to make someone else look good. But you know what was going with it? Was I was on Twitch. I was getting some XP. I was getting some footage. I was getting people in chat rooms to call me cool and to say, I like this guy. I want more of them. And that is what makes you know you're doing good at your job. I'm over here taking a beating. I'm over here trying to get the crowd to not like you, to like you, because I work baby in heel at Hood Slam, and you still see people be like, oh man, this guy's dope. I really like what this guy's bringing. That's what makes me feel good when you hear wrestling fans say that, because like, man, that's what I'm trying to do, is put on a show. What I'm not trying to do is, that's very old school. Like, for someone to, hey, come in here and we really like your talent and your potential. So how about you just go 15 minutes with this guy, and then next week you're going to also job to this guy, and then we'll see what all this stuff. I'm not here in Northern California to literally make everyone else's resume better. I'm trying to make my resume better. I'm trying to work people that are going to help me. I'm trying to wrestle people that are going to brush me up and that are going to give me IQ. I'm not going to be 27 years old making older guys, so it was, I want to learn from vets, but you got to know who are vets and who aren't. And man, that ring announcer that I mentioned in Hawaii that called me, he was like, Neil, I was only in a training session with you for a week, and I thought you were a vet. And to hear that come out of his mouth, I was like, whoa, man, because I take everything with a grain of salt. These people, and I when I say these people, like promoters, bookers, Hollywood people that we look up to because we want to be a wrestler one day, they'll say these things like, oh, man, you're ready for the main event. You're ready for this. You're ready for that. And I'm over here. You know who is your friend and who isn't, who's just trying to bait you and who's just trying to boost you up. And people like Chupi that was driving me to Oakland. Hey, man, nobody's going to take you seriously until you've had 100 matches. Hey, man, you need to watch out with whatever ring you're in and who you're working. Don't always look at, and so I look at that, and then you get around people like, no, man, there's I was introduced to steroids when I was 19, but I didn't do them. I just saw them. And I've been told, because my first boss that I had in Massachusetts was like, Neil, you want to be a wrestler? I've seen those locker rooms, man. They carry a bunch of bad stuff. I saw it when I was 19, but I've never done it because I've never had to. You just go off of the talent and the athleticism you have alone. Now, when I was sitting around tables with wrestlers and they would be like, hey, maybe juice a couple weeks before your trial, or hey, maybe do this, do that. Yeah, it's cool that they got it down to a science. But steroids is not the problem here in Northern California. I think it's, that you got some people that do it. I mean, there are in any locker room, anywhere in wrestling, you're going to have people that do that. But it was alcohol that I saw that was a bad deal. Like it was a lot of like just, that's what I meant by old school. It's not because I want to be old school because Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, they weren't Instagramming themselves, hey, here I am at Pale Pro, come catch me. No, I want to be an old school guy that's traveling the country, working shows, being a character, but I don't want to, what is old school that needs to be taken out is people that are, resting on their laurels, that are big alcoholic promoters that are only running shows to boost up their hometown and stuff like that. And you see that they're not really looking after your well-being. They're trying to just make sure that they have the money rolling in. And that's no bueno for me. So I'm last weekend was a bit of a crazy one for me, but hey, if I could tell you guys, I'm excited to go for my next show. I don't know when it will be. I pulled myself off the shows of July, but Northeast has always been fond of me. I've never wrestled in the Southeast. I can't wait to go back home and to show people, hey, look, I've made bookings in the West Coast. Would any of you guys like to have me out here in Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee? And then I start wrestling again, get on the circuit, and now I'm out here in Nevada, California again. And I have nothing but love for East Bay, Hood Slam. They don't really have too many promotions here in Reno, but what is it? SoCal. When I visited LA, when I visited Vegas, I want to go see Phoenix again. I want to go see Tucson again. Like, man, if you don't travel, you only see a page. And when I go back home, it's hard to stay at my family's house for a month, not because of my family, but just because of the differences, man. Some people are okay with having a big family and the white picket fence and the security, and like that's cool. But that's not my passion. That's not what I desire is going to take a lot of futon sleeping. It's going to take a lot of sleeping in the heat in the cars. And when it gets 8 degrees in Tahoe, you get punked out and you start calling your dad and you go, hey, is it okay if I call the jail? Can I actually call the police station and tell them, can I just crash in the jail cell because it is too cold to be sleeping here right now? Like you remember those nights because it's man, it takes a grind for people, man. And I appreciate you guys grinding and listening to everyone's, wrestling's a brotherhood. And I appreciate you guys.
No, we appreciate you, Neil.
Yeah,
thank you
for sure. We appreciate you taking the time to, Talk to us for a bit.
Is there anything Wrestle Buddy wants to, tell Neil the Thrill? Is there anything? Because
I think
we'd like a T-shirt.
hey, that's another thing, man. Like my roommate, he had the Absolute Vodka and he turned it into Absolute Savage. My first YouTube videos, one went for 50,000, one went for 30,000, and they were off of his series. And now I just got matches and stuff like that. But I learned, like Flip Gordon, he sold flip flops. My roommate, he sold ringtones. He sold T-shirts.
Everything.
He sold 8x10s. Yeah, and I'm over here like. Yeah, it'd be, the Thrill is here. Thrill me. The Thrill has arrived. Thrillionaire. I've always liked having some quirky things on T-shirts and merch and stuff like that. But he'll before every wrestling show, he'd stop at the screen printing store, pick up a couple of boxes, and then we're on our way to the show. I like I said, I'm not 15, 20 matches deep. I feel like rookies. And I've been to plenty of shows. Yeah, it is nice to have your shirts and whatever, some 8x10s when there is the time for someone to spend for it. But when I get done with a show, like when I just got done with a couple of East Bay shows here in the past couple of months, I'll walk out to the gimmick table or the merch table, and I just got kids wanting autographs on their brochure or on their pamphlet, and that makes me feel like it's all worth it when here I am putting my scribble down on just learning how to wrestle. And when I was 19 up in Northeast Wrestling, I remember a kid bringing me their Northeast Wrestling little paper and asking me to sign it. And I'm over here like, oh, should I sign it? Because I'm not on the card. But you know what? This little kid asked me to sign it. I'm going to sign it anyway. And I opened up where she wanted me to sign, and I see Kurt Angle's autograph right by it, and I just had to stop for a couple seconds because I'm like, dude, this is it was us 2 years ago. You're watching this guy in grade school, and now I'm over here putting and it made me feel like you're like, oh, Neil, are you opening Pandora's box? Are you like doing something you're not supposed to? But that it's moments like that to where you're just like, oh wow, this is another big moment where I got starstruck is when I was in middle school. We probably remember the diva Maria, and we probably remember her getting on Playboy's magazine cover that year in 2008.
Maria Kanellis. Who can
Maria
forget her?
Kanellis. Who can't? Oh my God, that lovely lady. And then, but
who my crush was in WWE? You're gonna laugh at this. It's Queen Sherry.
I wish they would have done more with that gimmick, because I'm a big fan of Mike Bennett, and like when he debuted at Money in the Bank, I thought that was going to be who is a SmackDown superstar that debuts on a pay-per-view like that. Yeah. So I was just like, man, that's going to be a big deal. And then he had like one series with Sami Zayn, and then just now he's just on the skirts, like trying to get eliminated faster in Royal Rumbles and stuff. And I was glad that he had a job. But if you go up to Massachusetts, Mike Bennett's like on the flyers for wrestling like street fights and no DQ matches in like 2005. He's like an OG up there when it comes to Northeast wrestling and just putting his name out there. So like I really wanted that guy to succeed, but because he helped me out too with a bunch of advice. I did a lot of TGI Fridays with Mike, and after that wrestling show at the Valet with Dalton Castle, I was sitting at a table, and I remember just being like, I'm 18 years old. I'm never probably going to be here ever again, but there's Tommaso in a Phoenix Suns jersey. There's Matt Taven. There's Dalton Castle. There's Hanson. There's you just started to line up all these guys that there's Vinny Massaro, there's Brian Malonis, there's you're starting to be like, whoa, like I'm actually at this table. And I remember I had to ask someone to borrow for a fork, because I don't know if someone ribbed me and took my fork out of my napkin or whatever, but here comes my steak and I didn't have a fork in my thing. So I'm like, hey, do one of you guys have a fork? Who gives me their fork? Blackheart. Ciampa. So I was like, oh dude, what a nice guy. And but the Maria was, I was in 6th, 7th grade, and me and my friends are over here in our computer class in middle school trying to break through the piracy and trying to break through the firewalls to see her photos. And now I'm 19 years old and I'm sitting at a TGI Fridays Mike brought his girlfriend to the show. It's none other than Maria. She's sitting at the and my roommate trained with Mike. I was just like the young boy, but my roommate trained with Mike. So Mike gives my roommate a wedding invitation. I look at it and it's like, we'd like to formally invite you to the Canellis Bennett in Chicago. And and he was like, yeah, you want to go, man? Victoria's going to be there. Candace Michelle. And I'm just over here, like trying to keep my mouth shut. Like, what the F? Like, I'm like, what is this? And then it was hard not to look at her, man. Like, I'm over here trying to play it cool. I'm over here dishing out a couple of stories myself. Like, yeah, well, last weekend I was going 65 right by the Mass Pike at 3 a.m. and then a deer comes out in my way, but I'm from Georgia. So I just not even hesitated. I didn't even hit the brakes. I just passed that deer right on by. And then, I'm trying to play it cool, say some stories, but when you look over in the corner of your eye and you just see that big curly red hair Maria and her eyes just like pop out at you. And she was actually smarting up another wrestler girlfriend. She was like, well, this means that, and this means that, and this, and I'm just over here and I'm just like, I didn't take a picture because that's what, you regret not making the memories, but like, I just wanted to, I was trying to play it cool. And like, man, you're like over here, like, God, it was not even 10 years ago. It has to be like 6 or 7 years at the time that I was like, I was sitting in computer ed class. We were sitting in business ed trying to break the website blocker at the school. And now I'm sitting at TGI Fridays with her across from her fiance. It was just like, I understood what Desmond said, but man, stick with wrestling. It'll take you far places. Right now, I can't wait to go back home and see my mom and get back into the fam and see what is out there for me. But I would have, if you would have told me,
how does one go about booking you?
If you would have told, hey, I'll get, I'll make sure everybody has my information. But when you would have told me at 20, at 19, at 20, at 14, at 24, if you would have told me at 25 years old, Neil, one day you're going to have an apartment in Reno, Nevada, and you're going to travel these places that I've never heard the names of, I would have not, like it's a lot like that. Like just if I was 17, 16 and you'd have told me I'd have been in a high school gym in Connecticut and Booker T's over here telling me why he called his leg drop the Houston Hangover, I would have been like, no way. But it's as long as you put yourself in those scenarios and positions, you're going to get at least an answer in what you're trying to look for, and it's, no, man, I'm going to continue my future endeavors has me looking at, man, Oos Wrestling wants me out in Hawaii. I'd love to wrestle in Calgary. I'd love to wrestle in Alaska. I'd love to continue wrestling in NorCal, but it's just like, if I could have myself on one show in the Bay, it'd be Cruel Summer just because of how dope the card looks right now. But SoCal, the mid-states, I've always, I've gone from the East Coast to the West Coast. I never really done a lot in the flyover states, but they say Texas is really booming right now. And, going back to the Northeast and going to other countries, man, like, that's the beauty of it, and I think after this, if we can get this interview out, man, people will see they can hear the passion. And it's some people, they're big muscle guys and they don't really know wrestling, but then there's those guys that's watched all products of wrestling all through when they were growing up. They've been around everywhere, and it's a little bit bittersweet to know, like the guy that booked me tonight messaged me like just a few days ago. It was like, I do love you, I do, and all this stuff and everything like that. But it's just like, come on, man. I'm Neil. Just because I love wrestling doesn't mean I don't like to stick to my guns. Know when it's time to dodge a bullet and when not to, and understand like, hey, this is it's a job, but it's also you gotta. There's a reason why Austin Gunn has his dad go to every indie show with him. You know what I mean? There's a reason why people look after other. it's a cruel, like cruel summer. It can be real cruel out there if you're just your own, you know, like you see where they're booking you and you're like, nah, man, I don't want to go down that avenue. I'm nipping it in the butt, and I don't want to work this guy or this match particularly because I see where it's taking me. And that right there is vision. That right there is something you don't need to punish yourself on. That right there is something like they see that you're a little bit more intelligent than what they brought you, or not brought you, but presented you as. So, hey, at the end of the day, and Christian can probably agree with me, I got trained in NorCal for the last 7-8 months, and I didn't have to spend a dime. I'm happy. I'm a fortunate guy. I'm happy to be training around and learning, be under the learning tree from whoever you can be and from wherever you can. Because, I mean, the ones that are just going there for tryout camps and the ones that are going there throughout the weeks and stuff, they're paying dues. They're there, and they're you know, like they're trying to. So it's, if I could, and you know, I told all the other ones, I hope to see you down the road, because like that's, if you're gonna be a wrestler and you're gonna, don't ever have a trainer make you feel like you can only train here and you can only wrestle here and only wrestle. This is the only place you're going to make it as a wrestler, because that's going to make you complacent. If you were just training in Toronto or Newfoundland or wherever you said, Nova Scotia, and that if they just trained there and they never got out, they're only going to be as good as, you know, what they
Edge and Christian are two examples that did make it out of here.
And who's that?
Edge and Christian made it out of here.
Who? Wait, can you say that name again?
Edge and Christian made it out of here.
Oh, yeah, and they're from just a little bit outside Toronto, right? Yeah. But the cool thing about Edge is he wrote an essay to Big Daddy Siki, and I watched that documentary on Prime.
I've seen Sweet Daddy Siki wrestle back in the day. Trust me.
I'm sure. But did you know there's a documentary on Sweet Daddy Siki that's free on Prime, and it goes in on all the Toronto wrestling and the classic and how much he helped the WWF back in the day. But so it makes sense that he was like, hey, I got this dude Edge here. But that is like Edge went in many minivans and went in many vans.
Kurgan made it out of here.
Right. But they still traveled, right? They still went in many minivans, and they went up and down. I've heard stories about Edge and Christian being the young boy for who was the wrestler that just passed away? That was Terry Smothers. Tracy Smothers. I'm sorry.
Tracy.
I'm sorry, y'all. But Tracy Smothers. When Tracy Smothers fatally passed, I heard stories that Edge and Christian loved him so much back in the day. Tracy would be the one driving, and Edge and Christian would be the one breaking down, you know, doing whatever for Tracy Smothers, because they were picking Tracy Smothers' brain, because Tracy Smothers was the one smartening them up. And you'll have so many people smartening you up in this business. Here's the vital part. Here's the value part, is how many people smarten you up, and who is it that's smartening you up? Because Edge got trained by Big Daddy Siki, but Tracy smartened him up, just like Tracy smartened Eddie Kingston up, just like Tracy smartened a lot of those guys down there up. And I want to keep training, you know, I want to keep learning from anyone you can, because wrestling is not only always changing, but I want to make connections. When I was 18 years old, living in a hotel in Massachusetts, and I was playing my Madden online off the hotel's Wi-Fi, I had a opponent of mine on the microphone, Pineapple Inn, and Madden. I'm a big sports guy. I'm a big video game guy in general, just like most wrestling dudes. But the online guy, he said, hey man, in college, that's where I met most of my connections. In college, that's where I met most of my business connects. And I sucked that in my brain, and I took that, because I was like, man, I'm not going to school anymore, but what I do in wrestling will mean what I make in connections and who I meet down the road. And I think there's a saying that goes, the asses you kiss on the way up are the same ones you kiss on the way down. And like, you know, I don't burn any bridges. when I felt uncomfortable, and when I took that dude's advice, that guy Vlad that told me how to get myself out of the shows that I was on, Mr. Luxury was like, hey, I respect that. It is what it is. Best of luck, all that stuff. So no, man, there's never don't ever feel like you're burnt anywhere or feel like you're blackballed or anything like that. Now, if you break somebody's arm, like Sexy Star, if you're somebody that is like, you're not good to work with, there's a reason to be blackballed. But it's time is money. I do know that, and it pays to play. So I'm gonna keep following my gut and keep trying to become what my nieces and nephews like. Man, it's crazy to do a couple of interviews. It's crazy to do some photos, some videos, and have maybe 10 matches deep in, and people think that I'm a wrestler getting paid. That's not the case. I'd love to make them feel like that, but no, it's very. I'm donating a lot. I'm doing a lot just to keep myself. I feel like Adam Cole right now before he got, when I've heard him do radio interviews to be like, no, I had to pay for my own health insurance. Adam Cole was like, I knew a lot of wrestlers that wrestled without health insurance, and I've been one of those guys. But he goes, but that's dumb. You want to have health insurance being an independent wrestler. And Adam Cole was like, I was paying for my own. I had Medicaid. And that's what I'm doing right now as an independent contractor, because I also work. That's what my job is outside of wrestling, is I'm just an independent contractor right now. I've jumped in so many warehouses, so many restaurants, front of the house, back of the house, manager, warehouse, machine operator. Now I've finally lucked out, and I've gotten myself a call center job. So I'm able to take my job from home, and I'm able to take my job places. But you still have to pay for your own health insurance. You still have to look. It's so ironic how, 9 times out of 10, when I go back home or people that I come across, I'm just a long blonde haired hippie dude that likes wrestling, but like, it takes a lot of serious stuff. If you don't take yourself seriously, man, nobody's going to take you seriously. And
you want me to feel like I'm 27 again, man. Like, you're doing a good job, I'm telling you.
Hey, this is a good piece of advice. When someone said this, they said, how old are you? And I go, 27. And they go, all right, when the camera pans to you, you're 27. When the camera pans to you, you're 27. But when the camera focuses on you, because like I said, pro wrestling, it's all about it's just like pageantry and psychology. It's 40% about the moves. What they're teaching them down at the PC is what to do when the camera does pan your way, or what camera to look at when you're doing what spot. And one piece of advice was, when the camera pans and when the camera focuses on you, when you could tell that it's locked on you, go back to your 9-year-old self. Go back to your 7-year-old self. You're 9 years old again. You're 8 years old again. And I was just like, whoa, dude, that's very heavy, because you're trying to be a character, but when the camera gets into your grill and when it locks onto you, that's when you give them that boy scare. That's when I watch WWE now, and you see people hit the ropes and they go off of every right foot every time, or when the camera does lock onto them, you start to watch certain holds and you see certain nooks and crannies. But when Trey Miguel is a good one. When the impact camera pans over and he's on the turnbuckle, and then when it locks onto him and he knows what he's doing, that's because that guy is taking TV classes. That's because that guy is having Tommy Dreamer smarten him up by going to video classes and editing classes or doing whatever. And they're teaching them how to not just be wrestlers, but how to be professional entertainers. And like, when that camera locks onto you, don't just be your 27-year-old self anymore, or your 29-year-old self, or however old you are. You're now 9 years old again. You're now 7 years old again. You give them that boyish look, and you can feel it. You can feel it outside the camera. So, hey, before we all go away, who was my favorite wrestler was Edge, and favorite matches, all that stuff. That's really too hard to knock down. But what made you guys get into wrestling? Who was your favorite?
For me, it was Eddie Guerrero. Growing up as a Latino kid, I connected to him, and then he won the championship down
Right here at the Cow
in the
Palace.
same right here in the Cow Palace, not too far from me. I wasn't there, unfortunately. I like we said, I didn't know wrestling at the time, but I did manage to get to see him one last time before he died in the Cow Palace. So
And that's such
that
a
too.
historic wrestling place, man. If I
Pat
was
Patterson wrestled there.
oh
It's
yeah,
like,
dude. Just to hear all the stories about Pat and being around here at the
yeah,
Bay, that's some lovely stuff. And I wish I could have. I hope one day I do get to wrestle at the Cow Palace. Just I would wrestle for free there, just because of all the history that is there. I've told, oh man, to wrestle at the Cow Palace would just be dope. But Eddie Guerrero, man, yeah, it's cool that Sasha Banks say that she idolized him and she's gotten trunks from him. But to be honest with you, and to travel long places around the country, I don't know who wasn't inspired by Eddie Guerrero. Like like when his SmackDown little 12-minute YouTube video popped up on YouTube sometime last year. It was one of the first things on my YouTube page when I woke up that morning, because it knew I was wanting to see that. Anytime an Eddie Guerrero doc comes up on the network or comes up on any service, I'm usually right on, because it's you can. This guy was giving me when Eddie Guerrero and Kevin Nash. I like to put two peas in a pod. Eddie Guerrero could have been a badass San Antonio, El Paso cowboy rancher, but did he choose to do that? No, he chose to make himself the joke a lot of times and be the bigger guy and be a personality. And now we're learning from him. We're not just laughing at him. We're not just laughing with him. We're also hoping he gets better. We're also hoping to watch him beat Brock. We're also hoping all this, like,
yeah.
we grew up with them. It was like we're a part of them. And Kevin Nash kind of had that same deal. Yeah, he's the big macho guy. He was cool in Alabama and Florida. But then you started to know he became Vinny Vegas, and like this dude, why Shawn Michaels and why he got successful is because when you're able to notice that wrestling is bigger than you, and this stuff is not just about you, and you're able to make yourself the joke, or you're able to make yourself sometimes the job, or you know, like Eddie Guerrero, if he didn't do those facials with Rey Mysterio in the 90s in WCW, if he didn't put over the people that he was supposed to be, doing, that's what made him a mechanic. That's what made him what he, Eddie Guerrero is like the Kurt Cobain of wrestling. What would have happened if he would have still, like, who knows how many championships and like main events and stuff like that was going to go down. Like, I heard that it was supposed to be Eddie and Vince at 22 that year. Like it was going to be Eddie and Sean,
Sean,
something
which I
like
would have loved to see.
Yeah, and then they had to redo it to make Ray win the title, and now it's Sean versus Vince. But like they were setting it up to where, wait a minute, so we were going from Eddie versus Ray to Eddie versus Sean. Like, wow, dude, I could only imagine what would have went down. But like that's everybody will remember the Johnny Cash hurt. Everybody will remember the 10-bell salute. Everybody will remember what is cool about wrestling is when we were growing up, really the Rock and Stone Cold were only household names. Now that wrestling has propelled itself to what it is, I think Eddie Guerrero is a household name, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Big time.
So that's what I love about wrestling. Is like we're now Bobby Lashley is getting to be a household name. Now all these now you're seeing all these other stars break out, and like the last it was like 7 years ago when I met John Cena Sr., when I met the Boogeyman, when I would go across charity show. I met Demolition one time. When you listen to wrestling fans talk, it was like, oh man, you look like Jeff Jarrett. Oh man, you look like Chris Jericho. Now at the last year since post pandemic, I'll walk into a wrestling show and most kids will be like, oh, you look like Matt Riddle. You look like Riddle. And it's just like, whoa, like things have changed a little bit, like they have new fans, like there are new wrestlers they look up to.
Well, Neil, we don't want to take up too much time. We've
Yeah.
discussed everything. Anything you want to plug before we get out of here? Your Twitter,
Just
social media,
at
how
Neil
to
the
get you.
Thrill, at Neil the Thrill 53 on Twitter, Neil Harper on Facebook. I'm not a hard guy to find on Facebook, but don't have a YouTube channel, but just look over my page and you'll see some cool matches. You'll see some cool highlights. You'll see some cool things that I've done all across the country. I've met famous boxers. I've met famous people, and that's what gets me going. But what my goal is for this year, I had NWA as a goal, but I want, just because it would be awesome to go back and wrestle around my nieces and nephews. It'd be cool to invite people in my state to, hey, come up to Center Stage, come up to the Fox Theater, come up to where PBS Studios, wherever they're filming NWA, and come watch me wrestle, because I'm 27 and this ring does take a toll on your body. It is brutal. It is dangerous. And I don't, it was fun entertaining. It was fun performing. Now I would just like my family to make sure they see me. And, but NWA was a goal, but man, I want to get out there and wrestle everywhere, and I want to have fun, and I want to spread the word that professional wrestling has a lot of good people in it.
I'd love to see you here in my hometown.
Yeah, hopefully we cross paths since I'm here in California.
Yeah, since you're around here in the area. Yeah, I saw that they have a couple of shows out tonight and all that stuff, but no, man, if you're around the Bay Area, I've already told some people I'll probably be going to Stoner U in the next few weeks. Maybe I'm going to try to see them before I bounce. So when I do go and see Stoner U, I'll definitely make sure to hit you up, and maybe we can go kick it and get some lunch or something.
Yeah, I'm for sure down. Are you going to do any bookings for SummerSlam weekend since you're nearby?
Since I'm nearby, I was wanting, Vegas will have a good bit of bookings. I do want to get like FSW, the Super Beast compound. I'd love to get down there for SummerSlam weekend, but that tryout, right now, man, I think it'd be best just, I'd love to get bookings down there, and I'd love to get on some shows, but I'd love to just do that tryout. I think I'd be able to get myself, because Jody the Wrestler, D-Rogue, all of them, they're good and stuff, and they'll be booked down there. But I'm not just gonna, I'm tired of kind of tagging along and being like, hey, Choop, it's SummerSlam weekend, let me ride down there with you and just get on a card just to be on a card. I think I want to keep learning, man. So I've already, a couple of the wrestlers around here have been like, yeah, dude, we're going down there for Vegas on SummerSlam weekend. But if I went down there, I'm probably picking a lot of people's brains, man. I'm probably not just trying to get myself booked, but I'm going to go to FSW and learn more from Joe DeFalco. I'm going to learn more from Super Beast. I'm going to learn more from D'Lo Brown. I'm going to learn more from the WWE tryout. All the shows, like, I think the Super Beast has put on a couple of cool things, but to be honest with you, when it comes to Vegas, FSW runs the best shows, and I don't, I would rather just go and train with them for a couple of weeks or a month, and then if I ended up liking the place, because that's, to be honest with you, man, now that I'm kind of done training here in Reno and done training in NorCal, a lot of people, including, just my close peers around here, they're like, you would really like Vegas. You'd probably like moving down there and training with them and stuff like that. But it's been 3 or 4 years that I've been out here in NorCal, Reno. I'm going home, man. I want to go home and recharge my batteries, kick it with my mom, kick it in Georgia. And then if, I've never trained out in Atlanta, so I want to do that, but I'll never forget, like, if I need to go find a place and crash and move in with a wrestler in Vegas and start training at FSW, I'll try to make that happen. But, I'm all good on, I want to go back home and keep up with my connections and be like, oh, I'll just take this booking plane ticket from Atlanta to Vegas, and then car ride to Bakersfield to LA, and then car ride to San Fran, and we'll pass through Fresno. And, I don't like planning that stuff, but hey, I got to follow my gut, man. And, you know, right now I think I need to get back to my stomping ground.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this interview. You
Thank you, Christian. Thank
gave
you.
us more than
right.
what we
Hey,
expected,
hey.
man.
Hopefully, someone will watch this and be like, "Oh, I didn't know that," or "I didn't know this." That's what's so cool about just letting us ramble. But no, yeah, like, thank you, Christian. Thank you, Harold. I just, you know, I don't know if you guys had any more questions or all that stuff, but like, no, wrestling right now is a journey for me. Yeah, booking info. I'll get the booking info, but
we'll put your info right here once we edit it down and all that.
Hey, thank you much, man. But if I can leave y'all with this, it's the journey, man. Wrestling life, it's the journey. I think it's so cool to see people that Anthony Green, Christian Casanova, all these dudes that I've met go to WWE and they're training now and they're making money. And Flip Gordon got like $1 million deal at Ring of Honor. He got an ESPN article, like all this stuff. That's cool, man. I'm happy for everyone, but it's the journey, you know, like, man, if you don't, if your expectations was to be 20 years old, train at East Bay for 4 months, and then go to Orlando, if that was your prerogative, but hey, whatever makes you happy. But man, I want to see the country. I want to see the world. I want to learn, just like how Ricochet was going to all those crazy places, all these independent promotions, and then but you could tell when he wrestled, it's not that I'm waiting for the WWE. The WWE is waiting for me, and that's a type of confidence that oozes out of certain superstars, out of certain wrestlers, and that's what glues me to the TV.
Awesome.
Right on.
Thank you so
like
much.
A true veteran.
Hey, thank you guys, and I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Hey, peace and love. Pass it on. Keep rocking, brother.
Talk to you soon.
All right.